How to setting the tone, gain and volume of your guitar and amplifier. To setting the tone of your guitar and amplifier, we will start with the guitar's tone knob at maximum and the amplifier's equalization controls at center to test the resulting sound. There are many factors that can influence the tone of each amplifier, such as the brand and speaker type, for example. Once you've heard the resulting sound, you can begin setting the amp's tone to your personal taste. To know if you're doing it right, you just have to trust your ears. Even if they don't seem like it, they're smarter than you think. Our ears will complain if the sound is too sharp, and they will lose interest in what we are playing when the sound is too muffled. Self-confidence is a great asset in everything you do, and playing the guitar is no exception. So being clear about what you want and what you don't want is vital. In any case, there are guidelines you should know. Guitar tone controls are not usually very progressive. Let's say that they basically have 3 adjustment positions. With the potentiometer set to low, the instrument would sound with practically no tone at all. In the middle range, it would begin to have some tone, and at maximum tone. It also depends on each guitar and the quality of its components, such as the potentiometers. When playing alone at home, it wouldn't hurt to set the guitar's tone control to maximum and then setting the amplifier's equalizer. If the sound is a bit shrill, you can lower the guitar's tone a little, but I wouldn't lower it too much. Since there is no progression in this control, we may lose tone if we turn it down too much. In that case, we would have to correct the tone again, and no one likes to spend the afternoon moving controls of the guitar. What we all want is to play the strings. The amp's tone controls, or equalizer, are very sensitive. Therefore, with these controls, we can modify the tone much more accurately. Consequently, we can setting the tone of the amps according to the needs of each situation. For example, if we're playing alone, accompanied by bass and drums, or to adapt to a specific musical genre. If we're playing a piece of music solely on our guitar, it's normal to have the bass control above the mid and treble controls. Don't be lazy about lowering the treble and mid-range to cut these frequencies, which would become too present to the detriment of the bass. Another thing would be to play accompanied by bass and drums. These instruments provide a generous amount of low frequencies, drowning out the sound of our guitar in the process, if we have the equalizer set the same way we would for listening to ourselves alone. In this case, we would have to start boosting the mid and high frequencies to give us more presence. As you can see, equalization depends on many factors and must be adapted to each situation, including the room we are in. For example, if we play in our small rehearsal space with a certain equalization, and on Friday we have a gig in a bar, be prepared to modify the amplifier's equalizer once you have set up in that venue. For this reason, it is very important to rehearse a little in that particular venue. This way, we can adjust the equalizers so that we don't get an unpleasant surprise when playing in front of an audience. Definitely, there's no concrete formula for equalization, as our tone can be affected by different circumstances. So setting the tone of your guitar or amp is a matter of confidence in the tone you want to achieve, depending on the circumstances. So don't waste time searching the internet for EQ settings, as the good ones have different EQs depending on the track in question. The image shows guitarist Mark Knopfler's effects and EQ settings during one of his final tours with Dire Straits. As you can see, each track has its own equalization. It's nice to see it as a curiosity, but it's not useful for us. Unless we're playing in a football stadium with Mark Knopfler's guitars and his amplifiers. We continue with the topic of setting the gain or distortion of your electric guitar and amplifier. We can setting the gain or distortion of our guitar using some volume controls built into our equipment. This is just as important to the final sound as the tone controls, or even more so if we play in a band. In a musical group, we have to balance the volumes very well so that all the instruments sound harmonious. Our electric guitar equipment usually has 3 volume controls, 2 on the amplifier and 1 on the guitar. The 2 controls on the amplifier are the master volume, which can simply be called volume on amplifiers with gain controls. and the volume control, which in some amplifiers is also called gain, and is usually found right next to the guitar connection. The latter would be responsible for setting the gain or distortion of the amplifier. The volume or gain controls are responsible for the signal level entering the amplifier. So with this control, we can saturate the amplifier if we allow enough signal to enter for this to happen. As a result, the amplifier would begin to distort the sound. The master volume controls the signal coming out of the amplifier, raising the sound without adding gain or distortion. Consequently, it will increase the volume of the sound as it is, whether clean or distorted. The guitar volume control is another control used to setting the gain or distortion of the sound. This control is usually left at maximum, so that a good signal reaches the amplifier. This way, we can achieve a clean sound if we lower the gain of the amplifier, and a distorted sound if we raise these controls. The same would not happen if we had the volume of our guitar set at a low level. In this case, it would only allow us to obtain clean sounds, or it would make it very difficult to saturate the amplifier. If we want the cleanest sound possible, we need to adjust the volume of the guitar as low as possible. This will reduce the power of the signal coming out of our guitar, which has to be absorbed by the amplifier. We do the same thing with the amplifier, but even more pronounced. We lower the volume below half its range and raise the master volume to our liking to increase the volume of the device without adding any gain or saturation to the sound. For a crunchy or slightly distorted sound, we can turn the guitar volume up to the max to really squeeze all the gain out of the pickup. For example, with single coil pickups, since this type of pickup does not usually have a high output. This is a very interesting area in terms of the dynamic qualities of the sound. Our guitar sounds quite clean when we play the strings gently, with more pronounced distortion when we strum the strings harder. If we use double pickups, which are usually more powerful than single coil pickups, the maximum volume may be excessive. But that would be a matter of personal taste, but in any case we can say that it would be at or near its maximum. The amplifier's volume control can be set to about halfway, or slightly above or below halfway. The master volume, as you know, is a matter of taste. For distorted sounds, we turn the guitar volume up to the max, and the amplifier volume up to the max or almost to the max. This way, we can adjust the gain directly from the guitar volume control, softening the distortion when we turn this control down slightly. In short, the pure volume control would be the amplifier's master volume. And with the volume controls on the guitar and amplifier, we can manage the amount of saturation we want, or that the equipment allows us. This level of saturation is determined by the type of amplifier and the type of pickups on our guitar. The maximum distortion range would be provided by a high-gain amplifier and high-gain pickups. As mentioned above, if we want to lower only the volume without altering the gain, we have to use the amplifier's master volume. This would be very inconvenient, especially when playing live. To solve this problem, we can use a volume pedal. But for it to behave like a master volume, this pedal would have to be placed after the gain or distortion pedals, right between the amplifier and the saturation pedals. This would maintain the predetermined gain ranges when the volume pedal is activated. If we want to alter the gain levels by pressing the volume pedal, we would have to place it between the guitar and the distortion pedals. This way, it would act as a gain control or as the guitar's own volume control,